Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You're listening to Middle Path Radio, and this is the Security Council. Joining me in the studio, as usual, are my co-Ds. We've got Desmond Two Guns, and we have, of course, Robert the Beast Mugabe in the studio. Not to forget myself, Jonathan. Good luck, Django, Jonathan. It's been a long week, and we really want to start off by saying apologies to all our listeners who've been tuning in for the past, last 20 minutes, I guess. They've been waiting to hear from us. Now, something strange has been going on. You know, they're talking about freedom of speech, and all of a sudden, our servers, have been down. Is there a coincidence here, or...
Just free Middle Path Radio.
Yeah, just free Middle Path Radio hashtag needs to start trending because obviously
freedom of speech, bro.
That's right. Where are those conspiracy theorists when we need them? We're back on air right now, and let's get this show on the road. Brother Khabab, what we got lined up, just in general?
I think in general, the hottest topic currently on everybody's lips really is, and on the news headlines, is the Charlie Hebdo issue and all of the things surrounding that. That's and I think that is the core of it, and then there are many spikes that come out from it. So really, I think we've got a lot of juicy discussions for today's show.
Yes, that's correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask some of these questions and see if we can get some text messages, WhatsApp and Telegram messages from yourselves. But ideally, we really look forward to your calls. So the number we're going to give out is 07477 080-248. That's 07477 080-248. So get in touch with us. If you're calling us from abroad or texting us, make sure you put in +44 747 080-248. Of course, you can contact us on Twitter as well at Middle Path Radio. This show will be uploaded to YouTube, and all our shows for the last couple of weeks have been actually being aired live on our YouTube channel, but of course you should have the app in any case on your smartphone, where you can listen to all our shows when we air them. Right, some of the questions that we'll be going through. Maybe you guys want to post some questions. Let us know if we miss any. Charlie Hebdo, was he a racist or just a cartoonist? Like we said in our tweets and our messages that we've been promoting our show, this is a zero spin, no nonsense current affairs program, and we don't do political correctness very well on this show because we find that kind of stifles what again? Freedom of speech.
We are bastions of freedom of
speech. That's right, and we are the final frontier against the Islamophobic propaganda. That's correct. So, is Charlie Hebdo a racist or just a innocent cartoonist? Is it freedom of speech to be Islamophobic? Is there a difference between Islamophobia and racism? Islamophobic arsenic attacks before and after the Hebdo shootings, we'll be talking about that. And should Muslims take more responsibility for these attacks and these killings?
I apologize. Sorry.
I'm very sorry as well. No to Muslim patrol, but yes to Jewish patrols. Is that what's happening right now? You might be a bit surprised what we're talking about, but we will get our teeth into that one, although that will be at the latest part of the show, so stay tuned right to the end.
I'm sure within the show, somewhere along the lines, the last night's Panorama show will somehow pop up as well.
Yes,
so I think
definitely
it's going to be very fluid, switching between question to question.
What? John Ware.
Mr. Ware. Okay.
Oh, the guy who got killed, the cartoonist, the racist guy.
Yeah. No. It wasn't one. It wasn't
Charlie
one
Hebdo
guy.
Was the name of the magazine.
It was a magazine.
Yeah.
No. I was talking about
Charlie Brown.
Charlie Hebdo isn't actually a person.
He's just a magazine. What the magazine's called? No. I was talking about John
Ware.
John Ware. That's it. I was about to say John Snow. No,
the same guy who had a problem with Mayor Lutfur Rahman,
and the same guy who's had many problems. I think he's done like every year. He's done a Panorama story, a big one on Muslims.
That's right. He is the bedfellow of Andrew Gilligan from the Telegraph, and who else is his partner?
Boris Johnson? Oh, sorry. He works for Boris Johnson.
Some unknown people.
Gilligan works for Boris Johnson,
yeah. So anyway, we'll be asking these questions. Let's get straight into this one. Brother Zain, you're a very philosophical person, and you're very outspoken on these issues.
Thank you.
My question to you, yeah, I'm just going to say, people want to say, why didn't you bring a guest in the show to talk about this? Well, frankly, to be honest with you, the kind of stuff that we've been hearing from a lot of the so-called spokespeople in the Muslim community has been quite embarrassing, barring maybe literally one or two individuals.
Who, Mufassal Islam?
Did you have to bring that scumbag?
Come on, guys.
Did you have to bring him up? We had that discussion already. I won't be inviting him to the program. You know what? Actually, I might change my mind. That's the producer's decision. So, if he gives the word, then we might bring him on air. But I might not give him that level of freedom of speech, because he can take it too far with a lot of those F words that he's been throwing around on his YouTube channel, and he's very much quite proud of that. But anyway, the question I'm posing to Brother Zain, who is our resident expert and extremism and Islamophobia analyst, qualified by Middle Path Radio, of course, certified
and by
the
Fox News.
producer.
Hashtag Fox News Facts.
That's right. One thing's for sure, you're going to get some facts that are going to be actually true.
More factual.
More factual than Fox News, that's for sure. And that's not really a good standard to be comparing ourselves with. So I do apologize for that. Brother Zain, stop looking at your charger, okay? You need to get a real phone. I can't compare to that fruity flavored.
All right, let's not go into the phone business, because it's going to be
What
an
is the
argument
question?
here.
The question
What's the question? Throw it at me, man.
Is Charlie Hebdo just a publication that was putting out innocent cartoons, or was there anything racist about their cartoons?
Charlie Hebdo, far as what we know of them and what they've produced in the past, they've been always racist towards black people, towards the Muslims recently, more so recently in the last few years, and even before that, they seemed to be what's the word? Anti-Semitic towards the Jews, until they had some case thrown at them when they apologized and sacked the cartoonist for depicting. It was who was it? It was Sarkozy's son marrying a Jewish,
Converting to Judaism for money.
For money, yeah. So and then he got sacked for that, for being anti-Semitic. So if you're asking me directly, are the cartoonist Charlie Hebdo and are they racist? Absolutely racist. Not only are they racist, so people try to dismiss them by saying, "Oh, but they were freedom of speech because they attacked the politicians, they attacked Christianity, they attacked Judaism." Hang on, when did they attack Judaism?
Well, I think the argument that they will come forward with is to dismiss this. I've heard this obviously everywhere, literally, from whether you're talking about LBC radio or you're watching BBC's Big Questions with the different panelists that they have on there. The main claim, well, actually, let's go straight to it. I mean, we've heard this from the EDO, we've heard this from Tommy Robinson, the former leader of the EDO, and many other racists like him. The main case that they make is, how is it racism? How can the cartoons be racist against Muslims and Islam when Islam and Muslims are not a race?
Hang on, Islam and Muslim are not a race, but
they're not a race.
But Judaism is. So define to me: is Judaism a religion or a race?
Good question.
Legally defined, it's both.
But at least to answer his question, Judaism is a religion. Well, the word Judaism is referring to a religion.
I learned
Jewish people.
I learned even in RE in school.
Believe in the religion called Judaism.
Yeah, even in school we learn in RE that Judaism is a religion.
I mean, of course it is. I mean, there's nobody.
But Judaism
how can you not be prejudiced and racist towards Muslims just because it's a religion?
But we know that Islam is not a race and it's not a religion.
Fine, let's call it Islamophobic, just as the
thank you. Okay,
the Jewish people call anti-Semitic.
You're absolutely right. The reason why Muslims don't use Islamophobia is because a lot of people don't understand what this term means, and b a lot of the term Islamophobia or the crime is not recognized by law. This kind of hate crime Islamophobia is not, actually defined in law. It just falls under the general hate crime laws, as does racism and anti-Semitism and homophobia and so on.
So, for example, when
So I think-
Charlie Hebdo got a picture or draws a picture of a black person depicted as a monkey, do you think the black people get offended?
And Charlie Hebdo magazine did do a picture of an African woman, I think.
He was the only black politician, or only black politician in France, and they depicted her as a monkey.
So they already.
So they're not racist. They're not racist. It's freedom of speech.
It's freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech.
So you can call people the
It's
N-word.
freedom to offend.
You
basically.
can call Jews, stingy or something like that, and evil. And this would be, according to Charlie Hebdo, freedom of speech. And now, not just according to Charlie Hebdo, according to David Cameron, Boris Johnson.
No, it's not. Sorry, no.
The Prime Minister of
Hold the phone.
of
Hold the
France.
phone. Hold the phone, bro.
Every single
Hold the phone, bro.
head of state.
No, that's not. That's you just said. If you do that to a Jewish person, no, that's not freedom of speech. That's anti-Semitic.
That is anti-Semitism. That's true.
Yeah. So you can't make fun
of a Jew.
Jewish person because it'll be anti-Semitic, but you can make fun of a Muslim.
But let's go back to that same question. Since it's not race and it's not racism, technically, where it's really a semantic, difference. Okay, really, let's try and split those hairs a little bit further. So you can make fun of a Jew because of his religion, but you can't make fun of a Jew because of his ethnicity.
Not really. I think at the moment the way the whole
But I'm
Jewish
asking
thing
you.
works, no.
I'm asking you, if that was the claim that the racists are putting forward, that it's okay to make fun of Muslims because of their religion, let's put that argument to them, that is it okay to make fun of Jews because of their religious beliefs? Say, for example, they have to grow their sideburns really, really long.
Because their religion dictates that.
That's right. It's nothing to do with their race, ethnicity. Everybody grows long sideburns if you don't cut them. You know what I mean? So, is that something that you can make fun of? Because, if I went tomorrow and started to draw a picture, because I love drawing cartoons, by the way, you guys know me. And if I started drawing a picture of a Jewish man with very long sideburns and made fun of that, and said somebody in some fairy tale book of yours that you don't, that you guys believe in, told you to not cut your sideburns, that would be outrageous. That would be
Anti-Semitic.
Offensive. It would be disturbingly insulting to a huge number of people, Jews and non-Jews alike.
You'll be thrown in prison in this country.
Exactly. Absolutely. So why does the same standard apply when it comes to Muslims? Because this is what racism is.
Because Muslims are lower class here. Not just here, around the world. They're lower class. Their blood is cheap. Their belief doesn't mean anything. They are the slaves at this present time of the world.
That's correct. Okay, so I think it was really important to debunk that point, because these are the arguments that the racists are putting forward from head of state all the way down. And I've always held this view, especially since the confirmations that we've received. Was it the Hatton inquiry after the Lawrence case? When you find out that the entire police force in the UK is institutionally racist, then there's issues at the very top of this country.
Absolutely.
With racism.
Now, even as I came in, I was listening to some news, and it was mentioning David Cameron is actually saying he's promoting the idea of newspapers should depict.
Yeah, he said
the
they
cartoon.
should.
Yeah, they should depict.
You're correct, and he did say that. I was just listening to that on the radio as we were coming in, and I also watched the the BBC Question Time with Dimbleby, and I think there was a Tory MP on the panel, and he was saying the one thing that he wished that ought to have happened as a reaction of these killings was that every editor would carry the picture, the humiliating, denigrating, the demeaning images of the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
It's actually not images of him; it's images depicting him.
Yeah, they're not images of him. These are like drawings to shame, defame, and ridicule, slander, and character assassinate. The best man to have walked this earth, according to the experts in the non-Muslim
Because if you
world.
can do that, if you can bring Rasul down, that means all his followers are nothing.
That's right.
Do you understand? Their belief is nothing. What they stand for is nothing. So you can crush their belief right there and then. That's it, finished.
And I think this says a lot, actually, about the level of debate that is being had on the international scale with respect to Islam. But before we do, I just want to know if you think Muslims should take more responsibility about the actual killings. There could be listeners thinking, well, you guys started off there, you're making fun of Charlie Hebdo, some people have died here, there's been a lot of people lost their lives. Shouldn't you be starting off with some apologies and some sorts of condemnations of these atrocities and these massacres, this kind of genocide against the French people and the Holocaust that has taken place on that day against excuse me, I mean, that's the kind of way it's being played out in the media at the moment. I'm seeing the black humor in that because it's become so absurd.
They make it.
The only thing you can do is either laugh or cry.
They're making a molehill into a mountain kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you put it in proportion with the number of lives that are being lost across the world at their hands, the hands of the French, the hands of the Brits, the hands of the Americans, on a daily
or the hands
basis,
of the tyrants, even other tyrants
and
that
other tyrants
joined
who are
the
allies
march.
of these guys. Mr. Netanyahu.
Netanyahu joined the march right in the front, right next to all the world leaders.
After just washing his hands clean of the blood of
he can never wash his hand clean enough
of Palestinian children that he just killed.
The blood is too thick for that. He could never wash.
Also, the fact that he also killed 17 journalists, freedom of speech.
That's correct.
During the Gaza siege,
yeah. And there were some Egyptian officials as well who happen to be currently imprisoning several Al Jazeera journalists.
That's just Al Jazeera. There's
many other
journalists.
That's correct. They were all marching for freedom of speech. These same guys who were, who have these journalists languishing in their prisons.
Ridiculous! What a double standard hypocrisy there.
Yeah.
Not just one or two. We just mentioned here 2 or 3 here. Many others who so-called world leaders walking in the name of freedom of speech, who are persecuting and killing writers, journalists, people who oppose them, people who may have opposed their ideas or may have said something against them, imprisoned, tortured, killed.
So how would...
Just to add, sorry, obviously they were marching or leading the march of 1 million man march in Paris, but obviously afterwards that kind of got completely destroyed when the aerial shot came up of where they were marching, which was actually in a closed street, not part of the demonstration, just the world leaders on their own.
Probably one line of world leaders
looking miserable,
holding on to each other's arms, afraid for their lives, their knees shaking, and a few of the security officials standing behind them, basically.
But I think one of the points I just wanted to kind of just backtrack slightly, which is, should Muslims be apologizing? Is it our fault? Should we be taking ownership of these actions that are taking place?
Yeah, brainstorm that, because we're going to summarize, and I'm going to ask these questions again to you before the end, and we want to hear more, let's say, shorter, snappier, point by point. These are the things you say to respond to them, because I'm sure people at work are talking about this, colleagues will be discussing this, Muslims will feel under pressure to respond to a lot of these, whether you get asked or to come on air on, let's say, Channel 4 or to a BBC program. We need to be able to have some sort of a narrative that is short and snappy, easy to digest, easy to understand. But yeah, right now we're just going to brainstorm. So you're talking about Muslims' responsibility. Should Muslims take more responsibility for this kind of attack?
There are so many different points you can just answer this or kind of deal with this issue. But I'll start with the first one, which is simple, which is... do we have ownership from other faith groups for atrocities that are committed by members of their faith?
And sometimes, and often, in the name of their faith as well.
And the most recent example was Andreas Breivik.
In the name of their race and ethnicity.
Yes, of the race, ethnicity, and Christianity.
Okay.
All of those things. And he killed, 77?
77.
Sorry, my bad. 77 people.
Innocent
And on top of that,
civilians.
innocent civilians, young people.
Mostly children.
and they were all white anyway as well. So he didn't go out for a racist attack as they a lot of the times
No,
when
but
No, he
people
said
killed,
his target was Muslims.
But hang on. But whatever the case is, if you look at
His target was Islam,
if you
but
look at
through
the-
this, because this was-
why isn't he why is it that people are not speaking about it? Because they said about this person, like they say about all other non-Muslim atrocities and terrorists.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm calling them terrorists. They don't call them terrorists. Yeah, they call them criminals, or they call them
lunatics, madmen.
lunatics. That's what exact excuse that they used. He was a lunatic. So why aren't you saying that these guys who done it? And I'm not saying they are.
The point was-
but why aren't they saying these 2 guys that done it or 3 guys that done it? Why aren't you calling them a lunatic?
You're talking about every
Please
single
answer the
atrocity.
question. Why
No.
aren't Muslims condemning these?
Do you want me to say sorry?
Yes, we need you to say sorry quite loudly and clear. Say it loud, say it often, in order to keep your residency in this country.
An apology a day
No.
keeps Islamophobia
No,
at bay.
no.
That's literally. If,
Muslim proverb.
You know what?
or else I'm just going to know.
Just
that you're-
Free Middle
you're-
Path Radio.
I
That's
know.
what I'm going to say. Yeah, just Free Middle Path
If
Radio.
you don't apologize, I know you're with ISIS. That's basically a simple equation.
I knew.
This is
He
the
was a
formula
Mufassal Islam
and the
fanboy.
equation that's
it.
coming
We
in.
got a
If you
fanboy
don't
here.
apologize and take responsibility and you don't condemn it, then what I'm going to understand from
Hang
that
on.
is
Is there
Why
a
do you remember
difference?
ISIS?
No, but is there a difference between condemning and apologizing?
There is a certain difference between that.
Yes,
Do
there is.
enlighten me, sir.
I think it's quite irrelevant. I mean, no, actually, that's not fair. You do have a good point with that question, because some people have tried to say that, well, we're not really apologizing, bruh. We're actually just condemning. Okay, we're not taking responsibility for the actions, but we are condemning because it's our Islamic duty and right to condemn. And
Fine. It is, yes, to
Yeah.
condemn any atrocities or anything like that. Yes.
That's correct.
So why aren't these same people who condemning it, condemn other atrocities, bigger atrocities that are happening around the world?
True. Well, they also have to be. You're absolutely right. Good question. And I don't have I do have answers for it, but I don't think it's healthy for the radio on air for our listeners to know what my thoughts are on this one.
First, the point is, look, there is
I'll tell you what it is. It's an inferiority complex. They're paranoid. They're terrified. And don't do an impression. They're afraid.
That came out wrong.
They want to basically save their red passports. Basically, that's literally all it is. They're going to take our mosque away. They're going to take our schools away. You're talking about condemning the attacks. What about condemning the republishing of the cartoons that are massive?
But
insult?
I heard that they did.
It's adding insult to injury. Did they?
I heard.
Now you're going somewhere else. No, we still need to talk about the
going back
apology
to
part.
the apology, like I said, there's one thing here. There's a clear double standards. When you have clearly politically motivated acts which fulfill every single word of the definition of terrorism carried out by non-Muslims, in the name of Christianity, in the name of their race and religion, yet none of that is being attributed to the religion.
That's right.
Nor is it being enforced upon their people. The Pope, for example, to say, do you condemn and do you say that this is not from the religion?
Yeah.
And all of these things are happening. So why is then the onus
How
upon
come
the Muslims to
Netanyahu
take
didn't
place?
come to stand in a march made of million people against Andrei Breivik? Let's use the most recent scenario. Why haven't they done that?
And the most devastating terrorist atrocity.
Why aren't Germans qualifying themselves at every step of their word, for example, whenever they want to speak, by apologizing for the Second and First World War? Why are the Jews every time we even share their opinion?
That happened a long time ago.
on
You
foreign
can't
affairs?
use that. That happened a long time ago. That happened
50 years ago.
No, that happened more than that. 70 years
Roughly
ago.
50 years ago.
The World War ended in it started in
42,
1939.
45.
1939 started, so
Ended in 45.
45 years.
70 years ago, like I said.
How's that a long time ago?
That's a
There
long
are
time ago.
people that are
Let's talk
75
about
years
what is
old right
current.
now.
No, let's talk about what is current. That ended a long time ago. So your question should be, why aren't they? Why aren't?
That's a rubbish
No.
argument,
Why?
because
No. I'll give you the
2001
argument.
was a long time ago.
I'll give you the argument that you should argue against if you have.
Yeah, I'm just giving you a response to that argument.
I'll give you the one that you should thingy. Why
If it
isn't
was
it?
a long
Why
time
isn't
ago.
it? Why isn't it? Yeah, the Jewish people, because it's a faith. Remember, who live in UK, or live in France or live wherever they live, why aren't they condemning the atrocities that happen in Gaza?
Oh yes.
This is Hamas's fault.
Hamas.
No, forget about whose fault it is. Why don't you say it's wrong
They were legitimate
that young
targets.
people,
No, they were legitimate
that
targets.
children,
They were human shields.
infants were
They
killed?
voted for Hamas.
Not one
It was
or not
Hamas's-
two, and that's bad enough, one or two.
Hamas was killing the innocent civilians.
Hundreds.
The Hamas used the shield, and the Hamas
They
were
killed
voted
the
in,
Palestinian people.
and the Palestinians voted for them. So
the
they
Jews
are
have got nothing to apologize for.
just like the people who voted Hitler in.
Yeah.
They were at fault.
So, but putting aside that story, why they, to be serious, why no apologize? When Muslims,
I'll tell you why.
Muslims-
No. I'll tell you why they ain't apologizing. Because they shouldn't be apologizing. They know they don't have to apologize for that.
So
they didn't do it.
Then
They didn't do it.
What's the difference between?
It wasn't
that-
me.
What? Okay, fine. What's the?
What are you guys thinking of?
The one who smelt it, dealt it.
They were just saying, according to that track that they were listening to in the 90s, that it wasn't me. That's all they had to say.
Sorry.
Lost you there, bro.
I don't
All
know
right.
what I'm doing as well. So
No. But the serious question? What's the difference between, say, that person who said, "Why should I apologize?" That Jewish person said, "Why should I apologize?" And the Muslim right today, who's saying, "I'm sorry," or who's outright condemning it just for
Well,
this.
let's just say this.
What's
I
the
think-
mindset? What's
I
the
think we
difference
did
in
mention
mindset?
LBC earlier, you know,
Yeah, I was
but I
gonna
think
say that.
James O'Brien did do surprisingly enough, he kind of discussed this issue.
that was an exercise
when-
on behalf of his ego.
Yeah, of course,
And
just
in
to-
which case he did a good job. You're absolutely right.
And where a caller called Richard called in and
in
said, well, Muslims
isolation,
should
we
be-
can take that example.
Yeah,
as a
but
very
generally
good
speaking,
example.
you know, it's not really that we are fanboys of James O'Brien.
Yeah, because he's
it's
quite the Islamophobe himself.
Oh, indeed, he is. But on this little occasion,
Just the next day,
you know,
he was making his same old Islamophobic
This morning I heard him,
assertions,
yeah.
or should I say, the closet cloaked, kind of insinuations as usual. So, but go and tell us what happened on that
obviously,
day when
that
the
day,
caller.
a caller by the name of Richard decided to call in and say all Muslims should be apologizing and coming out and condemning and taking ownership for the actions of the individuals in Paris. And I think this time James O'Brien was saying why. He actually went through the whole argument. He goes, "Oh, because they should do it." He goes, "So how can you say that the previous caller, for example? So why does somebody else?" Whole discussion happened, and then I didn't make it very clear. And I think one of the examples he drew, he drew.
And what was his
comparison
response
to-
though, when he was asked, "Have you apologized for it, Richard?" What was his response? Natural response: "Why should I apologize for it?"
It's got nothing to do with me.
So, if it's got nothing to do with you, why should the Muslims apologize for it?
It's got everything to do with them.
Because of the fact that they're Muslim. Blaming the entire race, the entire religion, the people of the same religion, okay, for the actions of a few people of that religion. And then he went on to say, as you're going to probably move to, about
Have you
Richard.
apologized for your name being Richard and for all other Richards out there and for the actions of
Because
the shoe bomber, Richard Reed?
Reed.
You know,
did
have
try
you,
to-
have you apologized because you're a Richard and
Yeah.
you did it in the name of all Richards?
That's right.
So, and this is the same very simple argument, which is
I was about to read that, but
Expose stupidity of the so-called or the lack of logic in the demand that Muslims should have to apologize. Okay, and we talked about this before, isn't it? And we talked about the article written by Sunny on a few months ago that
Muslims to apologize.
Yeah,
It's
demanding
self-evident, yeah.
that Muslims should apologize is itself, indicative of racism. Okay, we've got a caller online, and we'll be taking their call very shortly. They know that they're on hold, and we'll give them the cue when we take them on air. Let us know, Mr. Producer, when everything is ready to go. So, demanding that Muslims should apologize. By the way, it wasn't just Richard who made that demand. It was Rupert. Remember Rupert from your
Rupert?
primary school days?
well, Rupert Murdoch.
that was actually
Yeah.
the text I was going to read out. Someone texted about Rupert.
Rupert Murdoch did make a tweet demanding that all Muslims should take responsibility and get rid of this cancerous jihadist problem of theirs. So
His new name is Robert. I think we should call him
Robert the Beast.
No, not Robert the Beast. Just Robert.
So it's not like we're making this up, and it's some sort of unknown person. These are high-profile individuals, very powerful individuals in the white community, making these kinds of blatantly racist remarks. So we're going to take this call right now. on air. Assalamu alaikum. You're listening to Middle Path Radio. What's your name and where you're calling from? You can use an alias if you please.
My name is Ahmed, and I'm calling from London.
Ahmed, thank you for giving us a call. What would you like to say today?
What is I obviously totally agree with you guys that we shouldn't condemn. Why should we condemn? Because when the Jews or the Zionists are killing the Palestinians, you don't get Jewish people here condemning.
Right.
But the actual issue I have is the fact that you have certain Muslim institutions. They're the first to come out and condemn. Problem is a lot of people blindly follow these institutions because these institutions do a lot of good. But at the same time, they're the first to condemn, and because they condemn, everyone else feels, or not everyone, some Muslims also feel like they need to condemn.
Okay,
so
brother,
the issue I have is that because of these institutions.
Why would you say what's wrong with them making these statements of condemnation, and
why
do you think they shouldn't condemn?
Various issues I have. Like I remember, I can't remember what one of your colleagues was actually saying that it's fine to condemn, no problem. Continue to condemn. However, when there's attacks against Muslims or there's attacks against their own people, they do not come and condemn. And a clear-cut example of that is, for example, when the Saudi sister was stabbed 30 times for wearing a niqab, or for wearing a veil, which is meant to be freedom of speech, and she was stabbed 30 times. So these institutions actually didn't come out to condemn, or they didn't say, oh, why is this attack happening against our people? They didn't put no pressure on the media. They didn't put no pressure on the government. They did nothing.
That's a very good point, and I would wish to remind our listeners that only about a year or 2 years ago, a Muslim sister in Germany, who was pregnant, if I believe correctly, she was in a courthouse in Germany, going through some sort of a trial, and she was stabbed to death inside the courthouse in front of her husband. This was well-known news. We've got references for all of this. And this happened in front of judge, jury, and guards, people, and police officials, and they couldn't stop this from happening. And it was a racially, or let's say more accurately, Islamophobic attack, a religiously aggravated attack. And that woman did die. And of course, here in the UK, in Birmingham, the Islamic Caliphate of Birmingham, where non-Muslims are not allowed to enter. And one non-Muslim did manage to enter, and he stabbed. Jokes aside, he stabbed to death one of the elderly Muslim gentlemen who was coming from prayer. So, Brother Ahmed, you're absolutely right, and we didn't hear so much clamoring. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what should be the response? I mean, where do we go from here, Brother Ahmed?
I honestly believe that we not only what you guys are doing needs to continue, and we need other forms of putting pressure where we're outright saying we're not going to condemn.
Let me ask you a question, Brother Ahmed. Do you condemn the Charlie Hebdo magazine for publishing these distasteful, disgraceful images of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or their caricaturing of him in this very nasty way?
Well, yeah, of course I do, because that's a clear-cut racist, Islamophobic actions that they're doing. This is clear-cut, they're attacking Muslims, or 1.5 billion Muslims all around the world. This is a racist pictures they're drawing. Now, for example, they've just got killed, or I don't know who the cartoonists were actually killed. What if I right now draw a picture of them getting killed and laugh and making a mockery of that? Would that be nice? No, it's not going to be nice. So why should they depict Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the leader of the Muslim Ummah, which is totally wrong?
Absolutely. I think that you've made some very valuable points there, Brother Ahmed. I really appreciate your time. Do get in touch with us again, and don't forget to jot down our Twitter account. That's at Middle Path Radio. We'll keep in touch with you from there. Jazakallah khair again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So really quickly, talking to our listeners there, I know we're getting some texts. We're going to read them in some time. But he touched on some of the good points that have already been made, and it's good to know that we're on the same wavelength with a lot of our listeners out there. If you do disagree, by the way, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, non-Muslim friends and enemies, do call us on 07477 080 248. Like we said, this is the Security Council. We try to be as representative as possible. All our panelists are from Africa and they're black, so I told you would be very, very representative of everybody. Desmond Two Guns, what are you reading out there? But you're always on your Facebook feed trying to find the most up-to-date video from Mufassili. Can you stop following this guy? Because you're making him more popular.
I think it's more about the fact.
I think most of those views that he's been getting is yourself.
Guys, I don't recommend anyone outside of here who's listening in to actually follow this guy or look at his Facebook page or anything like that. This guy is
they don't know who he is.
Yeah, but
you don't want to.
You don't want to know him.
Yeah, nor
just
do you want your ears to know who he is, nor your eyes.
That.
I think you should keep that safe from this man. But
That's
anyway, there's another point I think that was raised, and just before I go into the text, and just get the ball rolling, which is we have to understand with everything that takes place, everything that happens, it just doesn't happen. And I think I was actually watching a video by Russell Brand. His truths that he has. Truths.
Yes.
And he talked about it. He goes, these guys don't just suddenly wake up, suddenly say, that's it, I'm just going to go around and kill people. And he made a clear point, which is there is a cause and then there is an effect or a consequence. And we have to understand that. So let's go back to what caused the Paris incident to take place.
Surely that, Parisians or French men and women are asking this question in their mind, even if they're not saying it out aloud. Why did these killers do what they did?
Yeah,
why did they kill these cartoonists?
Putting aside what the actual killing, no one's going to agree with a killing like that. But why did it happen? What was the cause? What was the reason?
There would always be some people who agree. There were a lot of supporters on Twitter, for example, because they could have the anonymity supporting the killers. But they're a minority for sure. So there'll be maybe some aspects of the Muslim community, at least abroad and outside, who will justify these killings, even through Islamic text and evidences. But I don't think that's the view that everybody holds. But the question, as Khabbab was asking, that's the most important question. There is because people are trying to isolate this and say it's just an innocent cartoon. It's a little bit of innocent fun. It's comedy. And I think even, what's his name, on the big questions, on, what was it, probably Sunday morning, I think they have their big question, Nicky Campbell, he was asking and literally putting it that way, it's just a bit of harmless fun. Why do people have to get so angry about it that they go and kill people? So we're not saying that it's okay to kill people. What we are saying is trying to explain why they may have done what they done. We're not debating the right or wrong of it, the morality of it. What we are debating is trying to understand what causes men like this to go away and do that kind of thing. And the answer is very, very clear and very simple. And yes, Russell Brand touched on it. I know many others have spoken about it. I know Hizb ut-Tahrir has put out a statement about this. I know even Dr. Tariq Ramadan on Al Jazeera alluded to this. Didlu Hussein on 5 Pillars has been speaking about this as well. So a lot of Muslim speakers have been talking about this. Do you want to take the text right now?
Yeah, I think there are quite a lot of texts that are kind of piling up, so you want to really get through that. I know.
All right, we'll come to the reasons as to why they did the shootings, why those men were, felt, that they had to take that kind of action.
Here we've got an anonymous text, and it's actually a few questions posed as well as a few answers. You can say
rhetorical questions.
It says, why have the institutionally racist terrorist white police officers not apologized for the murders of Michael Brown, Trevor Martin, and Tamir Rice, and other black young
black American
in the USA who were shot dead for being black? Also, another point, I think, alluding to the fact we mentioned something before, is that Hamas is not in Israel. So when the Zionists kill Arabs, whether they be Christians or Muslims alike, why not the Jews around the world condemning those acts of terrorism? Those people who kill Arabs do so in the name of Judaism.
That's right.
And then lastly, he just mentions that, and to be honest, I refuse to apologize for a crime I did not commit.
Thank you, brother, whoever you are. Enough respect to you. We echo your sentiments. You got a few more there, or you want to take them later?
Yeah. I think there's a few more.
Oh no.
Then it says it.
I mean, oh yes, keep them coming, definitely.
Obviously, just
It's just me, I just want to get my.
He just wants to get his points through now.
he just wants to talk.
Just wants to listen to himself.
Go on. The number is 07477 080 248. Keep those texts coming.
Well, obviously, he's kind of mentioned the point. What is Rupert Murdoch saying? Well, obviously, kind of briefly mentioned what Rupert Murdoch mentioned.
Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah. It's
From
also,
the A-team.
Murdoch. His name was Murdoch.
Murdoch.
Is it true that British media have decided not to go ahead with the printing the horrible pictures tomorrow?
Unfortunately, it is true.
That they have not.
No, they've decided to print, and they've already shown on BBC.
And the
The
Guardian.
British media is going to be printing.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they might not print
printing
it
as such.
with the ink machine, but what they've done is they've definitely shown the pictures on the BBC Panorama program.
Yes.
They've shown a different picture as well, because there's more than one.
It was also on the BBC.
Guardian article.
It was also on the BBC News.
It was on the BBC News as well.
Yeah.
So BBC and the Guardian have shown it, and the Guardian threw out a disclaimer saying there are images of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in their article, which some people may find offensive. Carry on reading to see the picture. So those are not the exact words, but that's what I mean. I've seen the article. I've saved the article, and I've seen the BBC News at 1. That was earlier today, and I've seen, obviously everybody's seen the Panorama program, and they showed some. So yes, it's too late. It's already happening.
And just a couple more ones, which is obviously a point we mentioned already, which is 17 journalists died in Gaza during the war. Why was actually not war? Actually, it's an invasion or attack. So why was there was no unity march taking place for those 17 journalists? And lastly, maybe I think since brother Ahmed is our lead conspiracy theorist analyst,
Amen to that.
Is there a lot of conspiracy theory floating around about this, and is there any truth to it?
What about the killing?
Hashtag Fox
Fox
News Facts.
Ask what's it, Emerson? That was his name, innit? Mr. Emerson. Ask him. He might be able to tell you.
So really,
whether these attacks were done by some aliens from an
orchestrated from Birmingham,
orchestrated out of Birmingham.
Caliphate of Birmingham.
We keep on seeing melons getting blown up, so it's just really, is there any truth to this?
I don't have any conspiracy theories. It looks pretty legit to me. It looks like it was the guys who done it, who's being reported to have done it. It looks like them.
Who dropped the ID cards in the car? Okay,
who left the ID cards in the car?
No blood showing.
I didn't think they were trying to really hide from
the fact they had a mask on.
That was a pretty big indication that they were hiding.
There are one or two inconsistencies, of course, as usual. But I'm one of those guys who just kind of think like, it's happened, and who knows? Maybe they didn't do a good job of hiding their identity if they're dropping their ID card.
All these terrorists, they drop the ID cards, they drop the passports. It's like, wow.
It's true. They found some passports from the September the 11th.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
Nothing else was left. That was.
They should have.
Even the entire towers were burnt to the ground,
but not
to
the
dust.
passports.
But the passports remained.
That's some
intact.
amazing fireproof passports.
I have to say, the forensics teams in these agencies, they're doing a very sterling job. Did you got any other messages about?
No, I think we've kind of cleared the log of,
thank you.
Of text.
Keep them coming, brothers and sisters. The number is 07477 080 248. We really appreciate the call. We love to hear the voice of a real human being. Whatever your view, we will let you, inshallah, air them. As long as you're not doing...
As
long as you're not doing a mufassili on us with any kind of offensive language. See, there you go. Is a perfect example of what freedom of speech really means, that it has some limits. There are certain things you can say and can't say, and it doesn't have to be legally enshrined. For example, coming on radio and not swearing is not a legal matter. It's just policy. It's just common decency. It's courtesy. Offensive to everybody. It's universally understood. That it's insulting, and it's bad
shows
taste.
A lack of vocabulary. That's the truth of it.
And that is the point I was going to allude to earlier. Is, as you just pointed out, that somebody who always resorts to swearing and vulgar language, it actually is indicative of the fact that they haven't got anything else to add to the discussion. They resort to personal insults, swear words, and you said a lack of vocabulary, a kind of low IQ, you could say.
That's stupid.
Right? Now, take the cartoons, for example. If you want to criticize Islam, you want to show it for it being false, then be my guest. Bring forward your arguments, set them out intelligently, like grown-up adults, okay? And we'll see if we can respond. That's, open challenge. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his book, he challenges them to bring forth books of their own to contradict the Quran. And even the challenge is to find inaccuracies in the Quran and contradictions in the Quran. In fact, he says that there are no contradictions in the Quran. Had it not been from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would have found many, many contradictions in the Quran. And so these kinds of, you would say, they're not explicit challenges, word by word, but you get the impression that bring forth your evidence. Those kind of statements are in the Quran. If you've got evidence on the contrary to challenge the idea of the existence of God, then bring forth those evidences. When you lose the argument and you've got nothing to add to the debate, to the discussion, that's when you resort to cheap, low blows such as personal insults, character slurs, and mudslinging. And that is exactly what the cartoons come. And what that tells me is that the non-Muslim world has run out of ammo, if they had any in the first place. They haven't got anything to criticize and poke at Islam and the Blessed Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they resorted to these fictitious, absurd caricature of the Prophet, and literally all made up, false, slanderous stuff. So it only says more about the non-Muslim world than it does at all anything about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So those are some of the points that we're looking at. I wanted to come back on the question of racism. Brother Zain, you're looking at me very intently. What would be another way to explain to them? You describe, yes, Judaism is actually a religion, although the Jewish people may say they are also an ethnicity. That's one way of putting it. It's a very good, strong argument. Judaism is a religion, and if you make fun of Jews on the basis of their faith and don't touch their ethnicity, you would still be called anti-Semitic, and legal action can be taken against you. Is there any other way? That's one way.
Everyone belongs to a particular tribe or a particular category.
Yeah.
So if you see people from a particular, if you are, say, a Catholic in Ireland, then people may call you to be racist towards you, an IRA. Not because you're from Ireland, but you're Catholic and you're Irish.
That's right. That's
same thing here. You're a Muslim.
Would it be fair to attack all Christians just because of the actions of the IRA?
And they did
it in the name of Christianity.
Exactly. Not just Christianity, done it in the name of Catholicism. Or
Catholicism, yeah. That's a very good point. Another thing that I was thinking of, Brother Zain, was and Brother Khabab, I don't know what you think about this particular point. And I actually heard Majid Nawaz making this very absurd statement that Islam is not a race, and he's established that already. He kept repeating,
wow,
we've already established that Islam is not a race, like as if nobody knew that to begin with. He enlightened the world that Islam is not a race.
He's the professor.
That muppet
the nudges
then went on to say something like, you can object, you can be offended at my dress sense, but you don't get to tell me what I can wear and what I can't wear.
Ooh.
And I found that laughable. But he went on to talk about how Islam is not a race. And there were some people in the audience and the panel who were saying, but what about Islamophobia? You're just trying to say Islamophobia doesn't exist. And he wasn't able to articulate this point very well. What you have to do is find the case study and say, look, here's an incident where a Muslim was attacked because of his religion. What's the uncle's name from Birmingham who was killed?
Muhammad Salim.
Yeah, Uncle Muhammad Salim. When he was killed, the police did confirm that this man was killed because of his religion.
Coming out
What
from
do
the
you
masjid.
call that? If Islamophobia is not racism,
Currently, actually, they're calling it racist. Racism.
yeah, they're still calling it racist, yeah?
Yeah.
But they acknowledge that it wasn't the fact that he was Pakistani, Indian. He was from the Asian subcontinent somewhere. We don't know. I'm not sure. He was Pakistani most likely. He was killed on the basis
he was stabbed
of
in the
his
back as well. So it doesn't
religion.
really matter of the color of his skin. The guy
Yeah.
couldn't tell anyway. It was
It
nighttime.
was because he came
Fajr.
from the mosque. He looked like he was wearing the Islamic,
So,
clothing and attire.
Problem is, there's a
The
problem.
point is, what do you call those attacks? If it's not racism, if Muslims can't claim racism,
Sure.
okay, and
The-
Islamophobia isn't recognized, then what do you call these?
Well, the problem
it's
is
still a
this.
hate crime.
The problem is this, yeah. If Islamophobia is recognized as a crime, then can you imagine how many crimes will be recorded underneath it?
Well, we're probably going to find brothers from MEND and other rights groups telling us, no, brothers, you've got it wrong. Islamophobia is recognized as a hate crime.
No, they put it as a hate crime.
Yeah, it comes under the general, broad
Yeah.
definition of
It's not recorded as
it's
one.
not recorded.
It's not
yeah.
like basically. It's not like anti-Semitism. Basically,
It doesn't have the same
And can you imagine
high profile
but-
as
but-
anti-Semitism.
No, but
or
hang on.
homophobia.
But if it has that kind of profile as anti-Semitic,
Yeah.
anti-Semitism has here, then you can't do what Mr. The
magazine
Charlie Hebdo done, or EDL, or what's that called, Britain's First, all of those kind of people.
Yeah, and this is why I'm really getting my teeth stuck into this one, is because this is where Muslims are taking the hits on a legal level, on a public level, on the media. Muslims aren't able to articulate this properly, and we have to demand. What we're saying is we need to demand for equality. Muslims are not equal. Black people are still fighting for the equality, but they've come a long way because they have fought for it day in, day out. One of our texters
died.
right now today talked about how men have died, young men have died, and they're still fighting for equality in the land of the free, the land of the American dream, a land of liberty.
land
And
of slavery, corruption, and murder.
That's right.
You know, Ahmed, you should just accept it. The Muslims are the new slaves, and you should have that mentality and live like that, because
we must continue to apologize to our masters for being killed and for
And to all
for
those-
complaining about killing our own
yeah,
kind.
and to all those house Muslims up there who are taking the scraps of the white master,
That's right.
keep on taking it, because you are heroes, and you speak for all of us when you speak. Do you understand? It's the mentality. Why we can't do what we need to do is because we are enslaved in our heads, and we're not moving from that mentality.
So now
And
that we've
this-
debunked
that-
the question of racism and Islamophobia, we just simply say, okay, let's dismiss that point on the technicality, but you have to still accept and establish that Islamophobia is definitely happening. Islamophobia is a hate crime, and often violent hate crimes like this have led to death. People have been killed on the basis of their religious beliefs. So you cannot dismiss it simply as saying, well, it's not really racism, is it?
And there's one other story that came out this week. It was regarding that video that was aired with three very young girls under the age of 5, and they were singing a song, with
a
racist
nursery rhyme,
song towards Asian people, more to do with probably from the Pakistani origin and the Bangladeshi and the Indian origin. And the slur they use with the P word.
South Asian.
South Asian, yeah. So the slur that they use,
Basically, they
with
use
the P word.
nursery rhyme, which is if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, and they change their
if-
happy to if you're
A Paki.
yes,
No,
I
if
think-
you hate
if you hate all
peas,
yeah
you clap your hands, yeah.
yeah
It's the Security Council. What's with the P's and the knees and the D's? What's
But
going
no,
down with that?
No, you say that word.
This
I'm
is
gonna
the
take you
Security
down.
Council,
Yeah.
man.
Yes, sweet.
there is.
Yes, sweet.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Freedom of-
sweet.
Review this
Freedom
man's-
of speech has boundaries.
What are you talking about?
You cannot
They
swear.
calling Asians, South Asians, Pakis.
Astaghfirullah al-azim. Astaghfirullah.
And even recently, a UKIP MP called what are they called? East Asians, Chinese people, chinks, and his party leader came to defend him. For this. And these are the kinds of people that are winning thousands of votes and are getting seats now
Sure.
in Parliament.
Let me finish the story off, yeah?
Go on.
So these young girls, obviously got taught. They have no idea what
They
it
were
really
indoctrinated.
means. In
Child
They were
abuse.
they were radicalized.
Child abuse.
Child abuse. Where were the social?
Where is Boris
social
Johnson
service?
now? Where is Bojo?
Radical babies.
Where is Bojo?
That's what the media call it.
So
I
you
didn't
were
know they
saying
called it
that
that.
these children did not, it's not inherent in them to
Absolutely,
be racist.
they were taught this. They were taught this.
That's right. They learnt racism.
Point is actually not on the video. Point is what I've read after that on the Mirror, on the Mirror article, and it mentioned there that it went viral, and most of the people that liked it were from the EDL. Hang on, EDL are not racist. They don't like Islam, which and Islam clearly now defined by Majid Nawaz. It's not a race. It's not a race. So if they're not racist, but they're liking that particular video, does that mean they're racist now?
That's true. Very good point.
They were racist anyway. My
They
point
were
is,
racist
they
from
were
the
racist from the beginning.
even if
They
they
used
deny it.
Islam
Yeah.
as saying that it's not a race, but they're racist.
Yeah, all
racists
wolves
are
in
becoming
sheep's
more.
skin.
Not just the
more
EDL.
sophisticated,
We
yeah.
mentioned EDL, but there's many like that.
Yeah,
many
absolutely.
like that.
More from the mainstream. Racism is mainstream. If the police
Absolutely.
force is institutionally
Institutional-
racist, then we're not talking about a pocket of rogue officers here and there,
Hold
kind
the
of
phone.
slipping.
Hold the phone. Hold the phone. Hold the phone. So is
I
Israel.
don't have a phone, bro.
Israel. Hold the mic. So is Israel, because they don't accept you to be a citizen, even if you were born there or come to there or whatever, however you want to do it, unless you are a Jew. Isn't that a bit racist?
Are you sure?
Yes.
So I have to convert into Jew.
Oh, you can't convert no more. Even if you're, if you never
You're
lived
a
in,
goyim, bro.
even if you never lived.
Gentiles.
Sorry, even if you never lived in Israel,
These are
your father hasn't
racist
lived.
slur
Yeah.
terms are used by the Jews against non-Jews.
Non-Jews.
This is the what's the word?
The kuffar.
Them and us binary. Go on, carry
This
on.
guy doesn't let me finish a sentence. I
You're just
swear to
dragging
God.
on, mate. Yeah. I do
you're-
apologise, brother
lying,
Zain.
You are lying down
With my feet up.
with your
it's
feet
true.
up. Yeah. With
This
your
show
hand
used to
behind
be
your
called
head.
Cafe Ikhwan before you guys did your takeover.
Oh, can you get up, please?
Seriously, man. Anyways,
Belly's gonna get you. Sorry.
it's already got me, mate.
So, yeah. So
You lost your
I
friend.
lost my friend now.
You were saying that the Jews do not let anybody
Right,
become a citizen
so
of their
that-
state
that-
unless
that's
they
race-
are Jewish.
Yeah. So even in a state level, you can see these people
That
being
is a
racist
state
on a state
built solely on one race people and trying to completely, basically, wipe out the other, which is Arabs,
Yeah.
whether they be Muslims or Christians. There are Arab Christians there as well. And completely wipe them out and just replace them with Jews only, ethnic Jews.
We're not making this up because the very country was, let's say,
And the whole world supports
quote
them.
unquote established for Jewish. It's the Jewish homeland, Jewish motherland. You couldn't say that for Christians. You couldn't say that for Muslims. And you certainly won't be able to say that for black people. Imagine, so this is a country only for black. This is the black people's motherland.
This is a
And-
no. These are people.
And hold on, just one. Let me just finish
Yeah.
that point. It wasn't just a land, a homeland for a people. The people that established this land, who took it from the Palestinians, who stole it by force and gun and violence, but through military power, when they went to that country with the help of the British military, of course, up till today, they still make this claim that it is religiously prescribed for them for it to be their country. So it's actually textually, it's in the scripture.
Although just before
That
Israel just before Palestine was given
Is
to
the
them,
homeland of the Jews.
Uganda was going to be the option they had on the table.
Did they?
Oh, do you not know?
Yeah, I do know. I'm just.
So,
The
my-
British offered them Uganda, and they said, "Let's think about it." And then afterwards, they said, "No, actually, we prefer this land over here called Palestine."
Yeah, this is what I'm trying
Uganda
to do.
was saved.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make that connection that Judaism is a religion, and these people, the Jewish people, are established in this land based on their religion. It's not based on their ethnicity. It's based on their scripture, their book, the prophets that they believe in. Okay, so they are going ahead acting on a global scale based on their religious scriptures, and this country and along with its allies in America, they support this country.
So all of their actions, all of their violence is religiously motivated.
Absolutely,
and
they don't deny it.
By
It's
scriptures
not
that
even trying to make it a secret.
Scriptures that came 3,000 years ago.
That's right.
How's that so different to scriptures that came 1,400?
And that's why we don't see Charlie Hebdo making fun of Jews. And when they tried to do that, make fun of Judaism, unlike they do with Islam, and the Prophet of Allah, they get in trouble. Charlie Hebdo gets in trouble, and they definitely we can see, this is there's a clear double standard here, and this double standard can only be explained through the prism of Islamophobia. You were going to say one final couple of comments, because we do have to wrap up tonight's show. We have kind of overshot our limit on tonight's program.
That's because they were trying to shut us down from the beginning.
Yes, there was obviously some sort of conspiracy.
Yeah,
and by the way, Jesus
is not Charlie.
Jesus is not
Jesus
Charlie.
is Muslim.
Jesus is.
That's one of our,
Muslim. That's right.
People got confused with.
So,
hashtag who's this Charlie?
Who's Charlie? But you were going to make some points about why this has happened, and I think I just want to summarize on that point that you were making earlier, that this is not to be seen in isolation. It's not fair to look at just a cartoon. Yes, it's extremely offensive. Yes, it's outrageous. We have one other agenda before we talk about, but the cartoons were, on their own, extremely provocative. On their own, it was baiting some sort of a incident like this to occur. They were baiting it. Do it to us.
It's that statement that we may have heard it before so many times. Same thing with the issue between
they were calling the bluff.
The Zionists and the Palestinians, which is that you then blame the one who was raped for the rape.
That's correct.
That's exactly what it is. The one who is being bullied. So the one who is bullied, he's then blamed for being bullied. And this is exactly what's happening now. That you provoke so much until a reaction comes, and then say, "Oh, look at these people! Look what you guys are doing."
What you're saying is, there is some responsibility, obviously. I think British press in general, prior to this event, have behaved more responsibly than they are right now, and they will say these are the editorial kind of decisions that they've taken, because there will be a reaction, whether we agree with the reaction, whether we say it's legal, moral, right or wrong. Okay, there will be a reaction. People will be outraged, and they will be offended, and they will express their anger in certain ways that we may or may not approve of. But the fact is that it will happen, and we will be responsible for having provoked that and started off that chain of events. If we know that this is an inevitable end result, then should we be the ones who start off the cycle that ensues after this kind of action? And somebody was writing on his blog piece very, very well that this is what Charlie Hebdo was doing. It was playing this game where you are literally
playing with fire.
You're playing with fire. You're strapping yourself to a train line, and you're saying, they should not run me over. I'm an innocent civilian. The train should not run me over. And the point the blogger was making, I forgot his name. He made the excellent point that the train will still hit you. Now, you could try to make a point that the train is bad for having hit you, and so on. Nonetheless, the train will still hit you. Can you then blame the train and say, "Oh," the question he's asking is, could you have done some things to have prevented that outcome from taking place? I.e., did you have to, sit on the train tracks? Nobody forced you to do so. You could make this point that Muslims are not, and many secularists have been saying that, and even Majid Nawaz and others who are pro-atheist, if they're not atheists themselves, have constantly been making this claim about blasphemy laws, and he's been on and on about this, banging on about this with Paxman and so many other interviews that he's been doing. People have been talking. If you want to bring attention to blasphemy law, which isn't being implemented anywhere in the Muslim world, by the way, if you want to bring attention, talk about it, no problem.
Not in Pakistan, not in Saudi Arabia.
No. So the question really was that is it fair just to look at the killings in isolation? And I think Asghar Bukhari, he made a very good point that, look at this, even the killers themselves, they said that it's not just the cartoons. Yes, the cartoons were adding insult to injury. What was the injury? The injury is, of course, the whole history, up till today, ongoing history, from the CIA reports that were made public of the kind of abuse and torture that they were meting out to these prisoners that they have in their captivity.
So
From the
abuse to the Muslims and abuse to the Muslim lands.
From the wars in Afghanistan that the European countries and the Western countries were, up till today taking part of. The war in Iraq, of course, the first and the second, and their support for Israel and their silence and their tacit approval of the killings of civilians in Palestine. From their support in Mali most recently, and the militarization of that region by the powers of France and her allies. So, and not just about that. In France alone, the Muslim population is quite big. Okay, although they're still a minority. What is it, 5%? 6%?
It's the biggest Muslim population in Europe.
I think it's bigger than UK. UK is about 5%. So I think theirs is 8% in France. And Muslims in France, go look at their living conditions. Go and look at the way they've been treated. Look at the laws. Say, for example, we're talking about freedom of speech. In that very same country, they're championing freedom of speech and freedoms in general. Look at the women in the Muslim community who are not allowed to wear their face veil. They get punished legally and they get fined money. They get taxed they get penalized for expressing their religion.
And even also just the hijab as well. In certain institutes, hijab is
okay. So even the headscarf, yes, altogether.
Remember, the hijab ban happened years back.
Yes, prior to the
niqab one's
ban.
more Sarkozy brought that. I think pushed that one through. But previously, before that, then the hijab ban happened. So
the
public institutes.
The point I'm making, though, Brother Khabbab, is you're absolutely right. So you're trying to be more accurate with the facts. I'm just kind of lumping it all together and trying to say that it's not. Yeah, it's not just. It's not just your the cartoon. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. So as they say, for these few guys who then went and did what they did, okay, and it needs to be looked in that perspective. And Russell Brand was saying that they don't understand that. He has to try much harder, almost artificially force himself to think about the whole news report that a dozen lives were lost today in a drone strike against terrorist positions on the borders of Pakistan. 7 of those were children. He has to make himself think, because they don't relate to other human beings. Even he's admitting to it that they've been raised and they've been dehumanized in many ways to only care about white lives, and he does mention that himself on his video. And that's the case, that these cartoons were not the only thing. They were the final straw that broke the camel's back.
Even the news on Muslim so-called so-called news. I don't know how true this is. That Muslims killed, I think, was it 1,200 people in a particular village somewhere else. That didn't even make news. Why?
Boko Haram.
Why? Because they're black people in Africa.
They said apparently Boko Haram killed 2,000 people. 2,000. That didn't make the news.
That didn't make the news.
They're not white.
It's true. And in many ways, it doesn't matter to them. Even if it is white lives that are being lost,
collateral.
If the killing's not being done by Muslims, because you mentioned Andres Breivik and he killed 77 white people.
So there is an equation. There is an equation. Muslim killer, white.
Yes, certain conditions
victim,
have to be
or
met.
Non-Muslim victim.
The perpetrators have to be Muslim, and the victims have to generally be
white,
unless it's a slow news day, which was when they cared about the Nigerian girls and they did the hashtag Bring Back My Girls. News was pretty slow at the time. They thought, how can we, as long as if it fits this agenda narrative, which is hate Muslims, paint them as criminals, then they will run with that story. And
did you guys see this diagram done? I received it.
I still can't get my head around this. I'm sorry, you're asking me a question, but I still can't get my head around. Where was the outrage? 77 white people died in Europe. Where was the march? Where was the standing minute of silence? Where were the statements from the heads of state? There was nothing. I'm not asking.
The Cobra meetings and
the threat levels being raised and the extra police presence in the streets of London. Where was that? None. There was nothing to be seen. And if they think the people of this country, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, are all absurd and stupid, and they don't see this, then they're the bigger fool. You should show me a very interesting diagram there. I'm very bad with these diagrams, to be honest with you.
I mean, the diagram shows. I received this a few days ago, and it says the Islamophobia news algorithm.
It's like a flow chart.
Yeah, it's a flow chart.
It
tells,
yes, no questions.
Yeah,
if
it
it's
tells,
yes, meets this question. Is it yes, meets that
I'll
question?
give you an example. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a quick example.
What does it say at the top?
It says deadly event, so an event that happened, a deadly event that happened. Yeah. Then it says.
What does the flow chart trying to determine?
So it determines whether this story
whether
should be
or not.
headline or not.
Okay,
basically,
okay.
yeah. So deadly events right at the top. Did a Muslim do this? Yes. Headline news.
Okay.
Did a Muslim do this? No. Are the Muslim victims to it? If you say yes, then he goes, could it look like... So are the Muslims... are the victims Muslims? If you say yes, then it go... So if you say no, then it says, use standard news algorithm. Yeah? So what's the standard news algorithm? Basically... not much. It's not really important, so forth. Yeah. If you say yes, the Muslims were victims, it goes to the next line. It goes, could it look like they bought it on themselves?
It's very funny.
This is ridiculous.
But
if he says
seems
no,
to be the one that
but if he says
general
no,
press are using at the moment.
But if you say no, it goes straight to the shredder.
Yeah, basically, it doesn't make the
news. Make the news. Yeah. If you say yes, it says more than 100 dead Muslims. If you say no, paragraph. It'll give you a paragraph on page 10. Basically. If you say yes, then it'll go into did Israel do it? If he says no, then it makes the headlines. If he says yes, it goes do a little paragraph.
So if Israel is the perpetrator in this case, then it's not a headline.
That's right.
So and it's true. I mean, it appears that this is the kind of equation or algorithm here that they're describing, and that's what Brother Khabab was saying, that there seems to be some sort of a equation that the perpetrator has to be Muslim, the victims have to be non-Muslim or white, and then that's what makes the headlines, and it trumps every other.
It's not just we're saying white
incident.
or black or whatever. It's whatever it's been brought up exactly. And whatever they can relate to. So if it's one of the people that we can relate to, then let's use this.
Like when the Taliban shot that girl, Malala, is it?
Yeah.
Again, so it's something that they could use to further their objective and their agenda at that time. And so she was suddenly the pin-up girl that was brought here, and her life was saved.
There are tens of thousands of Malalas in Syria
that have been
being killed by the friend of Tony Blair and former and current prime ministers of the UK. And they are being killed. They are being slaughtered. They are being beheaded by, wait for it, non-Islamist forces, by Bashar al-Assad and his men, by his allies in Iran. Okay, who are now in Syria, doing the kinds of crimes and atrocities that they're committing.
Far worse than
which we no longer hear about now, because anything related to Syria has to be about ISIS.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to the
we
last
need
question.
to go to the last question, because the this is
it's
related, but it's
Django of the week as well.
Okay, Django of the week. Hashtag Django of the week.
We'll come to that then. Just bear that in mind.
Just bear that in mind. Who do you think should be Django of the week for this program? We pick out the lousiest, silliest, embarrassing character who made the news headlines this week. Somebody maybe who's a little bit more obscure, you may think. We're picking on the usual suspects. If you think you've got a good recommendation, drop us a text or a tweet, hashtag Django of the week, and then the name of the person you think should make it. Previous Django's of the week have been people like Boris Johnson, people like George W. Bush, the usual kind of clowns. And often criminals, even in some cases, have made Django of the week. And what's that lady's name? Who I can't call her a lady. I keep making that mistake. That
Katie Donkey Hopkins.
Pathetic excuse. Yes, that's the woman. So she made Django of the week on one of the occasions, and it was actually interesting. She was also making insults against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it seems to be the trademark of all racists to attack Prophet Muhammad in this way. The final matter for tonight before we close is Muslim patrols. How illegal were those, and how extreme it was to have Muslim patrols on the streets of London. As Emerson was saying on Fox News, that there are parts of London that they would attack you, and they would what was he saying? What was his exact words? He made it appear so violent that they would attack you and leave you injured and wounded on the streets of London if you do not abide by a particular dress code in London, in certain Muslim areas. But that's not why we're talking about Muslim patrols today. We're talking about Muslim patrols because another kind of patrol is on the beat. And when I say on the beat, I mean literally like the police.
They've got vehicles.
They've got the BMW 5 Series all marked up and painted just like the BMW police.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
But doesn't it say Shoram on the side or something?
Sure. I don't know what it stands for.
God.
It does sound like a very bad word in Bangladeshi language.
It means God in Judaism.
It means God.
Yeah.
They got no shame. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Jewish people in the scripture are not meant to be anywhere near pork.
Right. So I don't. But the point is, they've got. I would say they're impersonating police officers. And the police force in general.
But they've got the backing of the police, though.
Huh?
They've got the backing of the police.
And they've got the backing, the support
If
of the
I
police.
didn't see that,
they've got the backing of the British public, it seems.
But even on the car, if you didn't see that
Shoram.
Well, I'll be honest with you, even if I saw the writing Shoram,
yeah.
I would still think that's maybe some sort of a code, serial number that the police officers often have on the top of their
or
cars.
a specialist police section or
something like that.
Yeah.
I think they're police. And if their sirens were going off, and yes, they said the color of the siren is actually not blue.
It's illegal.
It's illegal to have blue sirens unless you are part of that service, which they're not. So, but even still, if I saw an orange siren going off and I could make out the look of the vehicle, it was a BMW, the same make and model of the police officers that do drive those vehicles, and it had the same decals or whatever you call them, the vinyl, prints on the car, the blue and white. Green and blue. I'd automatically make way for them on the streets. I'd stop if they stopped me, because I'd assume automatically that they're police officers, and generally their presence, police officers' presence generally, even when you are innocent, if you're a Muslim or if you're a black man, generally it heightens tensions in the community when you see.
There's a
picture for them.
Yeah, there's actually
showed him. Yeah, so Google that, guys. It's been
Britain,
Sky News, it's been talked about on LBC by Nick Ferrari as well, and many others, and he's been praising them and really,
hang on,
glowing with delight.
Do you know why? Because they're actually recognised as the Jewish, not patrol, Jewish defence something, or something or another.
Jewish defence
or something like that.
No, it's not Jewish defence league.
They're racist.
No, but it's actually they're actually acknowledged by. I forgot what they call Jewish defence something. Yeah, they're acknowledged by the government. They're acknowledged by the police. They're acknowledged by so many. Hang on, if you can have.
So they work very closely with these government institutions.
Absolutely.
Okay? And the point you're making is, so why do they have a problem with Muslims doing anything similar? Why is it called vigilantism? And when Muslims try to do anything of that kind,
because these guys are defending some people, defending a nation or defending people from a particular nation that are being attacked.
Okay, you and I, if we wanted to become a Muslim patrol tomorrow, not that I was involved or anything like that, I'd be too fat. I wouldn't make the entry. But if we were to do that, and we weren't going out there to stop people from drinking alcohol, but we were doing it to stop people from committing general crime, petty crime, and
forget about petty crime. Let's say
imagine me and
stop
you
attacks
did do that
from
on Muslims.
Yeah.
Stop Islamophobic incidences from taking place. If we were to do that, do you think that would be something that would be warmly embraced and accepted? The way the Shorim Jewish
you would be called an extremist, and you'd be lucky not to be called a terrorist, and you'd be thrown in a prison. As simple as. It's only because the Muslims are not allowed to do this. If Muslims do this...
were those guys thrown to prison? The Muslim patrols guys?
Yes, they were.
For doing what? For telling people don't drink alcohol?
For telling people...
That's his personal opinion.
Yeah, freedom of speech.
Did they actually beat anybody up?
Nope.
Did they actually injure anyone?
They apparently intimidated...
so you go to jail for intimidation. I mean, what does that mean? They just spoke to people, said, look, you need to drop your can of alcohol. Yeah. Don't drink alcohol here. We're not saying that's good or bad. We're not saying that's right or wrong. But you're saying if you're a Muslim and you do something like that, you go to prison.
Yeah, you said
But I even gave you the scenario, Brother Zain, that let's say we don't even do anything like that. We just go around in groups, in uniform, in our BMW cars.
Hang on. You're saying all of this, yeah? I seen a clip.
This clip is on
YouTube.
Recognize crime in the UK.
This clip is on YouTube. Yeah. I've seen this clip where a white guy, he's not even Muslim. He does blogging on YouTube and all that. He went in I think Golders Green or one of those kind of areas where it's populated with Jewish people, and he was recording, and he wanted to ask people questions on the Gaza event and Gaza atrocities and all that.
Yes.
He got stopped by one of these guards.
Yes, I remember this.
And the guard identified himself as a Jewish patrol, or whatever he said, whatever it may be, and he got surrounded by them.
And he got manhandled.
Now, this should have been headline news.
Do they have these kinds of powers? This is what I'm saying. It's really a recipe for disaster, and it can be easily abused by people.
I thought nobody's allowed to take the law into their own hands. I thought this was the case. You're not allowed to take the law into your own hands.
Yeah. Exactly.
He was hounded out the area. Now, he was hounded out what area? What area is this? This is London. This is London.
Jewish area. Jewish caliphate.
Are these no-go areas for non-Jews?
Yes.
For goyims?
Look at this double standard, pathetic. What's the word I'm looking for?
So if you don't, ascribe to hardline Judaism, then you get manhandled and chucked out. If you, for example, ask questions about Israel and you happen to be a Jew or a white man, you will still be chucked out.
You're a threat. Soon as you mention Israel and other things, you're a threat. Showroom will come, they'll deal with you, then they'll throw you to the police, and the police then will have to deal with you.
Wow.
Simple as.
Look at that. So I think, brothers and sisters, we've had a very long discussion on tonight's program, and we hope we've been able to at least dismiss some of the false claims that were made. We want to summarize them very, very briefly. And to start off with, we missed one point that we did make repeatedly, but we missed saying it in this abbreviated way, that freedom of speech is not unfettered and is not a get-out card. It has limits, and that is why we have defamation laws, we have harassment laws, libel laws. There is policy and regulation for that kind of thing. So you can't just go ahead and say whatever you want. You can't swear on air, on TV, unless it is rated at a certain particular age or a particular after the watershed hour. So there are rules for this kind of thing. Freedom of expression does not allow you to do whatever you please. And I come back to Majid Nawaz's stupid, childish analogy about objecting to his dress sense. He couldn't come onto the BBC studio dressed in maybe his swimming shorts, for example. He couldn't come
or birthday suit.
Or even if he was fully clothed, for example, he wouldn't be able to wear an offensive T-shirt, say, for example, or depicting some sort of nudity. We know. Let's say he's a straight guy. He's straight. He can't have a picture of a woman without her clothes on his T-shirt. He wouldn't be allowed. BBC would not let him air that. So even his example actually failed. But the problem is people are not able to take them up on these issues. So we kind of pointed some of these out. That freedom of expression is not a license to do anything and everything you please.
License to offend.
That's right. And it's not as simple as just license to offend. What we're saying is it's not a license for you to be Islamophobic. It's not a license for you to make fun of a people and the things that they hold very, very dear to them. And that's really the main point that we've been making on tonight's
Just before
program.
we finish, Django of the Week. I have one guy in my head that I think I need to make sure that he becomes Django of the Week, which is Mr. Stephen Emerson from terrorism expert from Fox News.
Oh, yes.
Fox
He
News
is
facts.
the man.
Yeah, so I'm putting him up straight up.
He has apologized, by the way, for his terrible blunder.
Only on the Birmingham issue.
And then he donated £500 to Birmingham.
Only the Birmingham issue, because he actually stands by his other comments about the fact that apparently there's Muslim no-go areas in London, in Belgium, and in France. Yeah.
For
Sorry, man.
Okay, he's a very strong candidate for
I
being
think the other one is also your best friend, your mentor, your
Mufassili.
teacher, yes, your guide.
Him
yes.
again. We didn't even talked about him today.
Allow him.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to call Charlie Hebdo, the cartoonist, Django of the week. This guy is a Django. You know, I
magazine,
drive
yeah.
around, right? Let me just put it this way. I drive around and oftentimes I meet idiots on the road about to run into me, kill me or something like that. Even I meet cyclists, you know, drivers hate cyclists, okay? And I see them and I think, man, I ought to teach him a lesson by running him over. And I think to myself, just to make a point, am I really going to do something stupid like that? Am I going to risk my life, prove to him that this was my right to cross here and then get hit by another car and then be injured or be hospital or be under, right? Just to prove to him that I'm making a point that I was right. It's not worth it. And for that reason, I think that was the irresponsibility of these cartoonists. It was the stupidity on their part that really they are responsible for. And I'm gonna call them out for that. And that's why I think Charlie Hebdo and the cartoonists of Charlie Hebdo, they are Django of the week. That's my recommendation, Mr. Khabab. Don't say Mufassili, please, because he's not.
Well, there
really
is a
understood.
story that we did not talk about, but there a mayor from a town in the Netherlands, if I'm correct, if it is.
This guy,
the Moroccan-born one.
the House Muslim.
So, I'm
And,
not too sure
so there's basically a mayor from a town in, I think
He's been studying with Mufassili. He's a great student of.
He's a great student of him. He's actually Moroccan by ethnicity, and so Muslim in that sense by descent. And he was saying,
He's born in Morocco.
Basically, he was saying how that if Muslims don't like it in the West, they can go and off.
Oh, did he say that? Yeah.
Yeah, he used the F
He
word.
took basically, Mr. Mufassili. He's a kind of
Yeah. So,
Language.
the only reason I would say he's not Django because
and then
I've never even heard of this
and then
guy.
no, and then Mr. Bojo comes along and say, "This guy
This
is
is
my
the kind
hero."
of Muslim we need.
Bojo
we
said
need
he
Muslims
is my
to say
hero.
more stuff like this.
Did you actually say that?
He actually
Bojo
said
said
this.
he's
Should I
my
read the
hero.
article to you? You don't want me to read the article
No,
to
no,
you,
no.
believe me, because it's the end of the show.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got
He
it.
said he
I'm
is
falling
my
asleep
hero.
now.
He is my hero. He actually, brazenly.
This is the
spoke
kind of
about
house
it.
Muslim that they approve.
He goes,
of.
"This is the
He
kind
government
of
approved
we
stamp
we
and
need
seal.
Muslims like this to tackle Muslims."
I must have
So
missed
we've
this
got
one.
3 different recommendations, and mine is quite outrageous, but I think it is very valid. But we're gonna give the the final word, to Mr. Producer.
To the Birmingham
Mr.
brothers.
Producer,
Birmingham.
you're hired. You're giving us the Alan Sugar finger.
Am I hired or am I fired? I'm hired.
To the Birmingham
So
brothers.
it's actually Mr. Stephen Emerson.
Stephen
you
Emerson,
are,
the Birmingham Brothers
you are, you are the Django of the week.
of the week. Stephen Emerson. Is that his name? Is that really his name? Emerson is
Yeah.
definitely his second name.
Stephen. And if it's not, I don't care. I'm going to call him Stephen.
It should have been Charlie Hebdo. It was all about Charlie Hebdo, man.
I'll call him Stephen from now on if it's not.
Man, we could have been really, pushing the boundaries out there, doing some rebellious stuff.
Listen, you
Making-
can't
Just to
change it now. It's what the
Hebdo.
producer.
Just
Next week,
just
Mr.
thought I'd throw a
Producer.
little fact in before you round up. Just Charlie Hebdo.
Always has his
you know,
facts.
Fox News facts.
I like these facts.
Well, at least my
Fox
facts are correct. Anyway.
Wiki fact.
Well, anyway, Charlie is, or the name Charlie was taken from the cartoon character of Charlie Brown. So they've got Charlie in there, and Hebdo just literally means weekly in French. So it just means Charlie weekly.
And who's this cartoon character?
Charlie Brown is like, I have no idea.
Hang on, I thought it was.
Yeah,
Oh, huh?
Charlie
is it the guy with the dog?
Yeah, I know him.
Charlie
Yeah,
Brown, yeah,
the
yeah,
white dog.
White dog. Yeah.
I remember.
Why would
So-
they, tarnish the name of such an innocent character like Charlie Brown?
I have
He
no
was
idea.
better- he's
I
not
think the guy who
deserving
started the
of
magazine liked
cartoonists
Charlie
like
Brown,
those
and
idiots.
so he
Or
kind of-
maybe probably I don't know.
yeah. He might
All
have
right,
been there,
shall
yeah.
we end it here, guys?
Yes.
Well, we must
Case
end it
closed,
here,
court, judge.
Of course, yes. So we remember this character, Charlie Brown. Do get in touch with us even after the show. And if you missed some of the beginning, then you know where to go. It's our YouTube channel. And
That's where you can watch the show.
that's where you watch the show. So
Keep the rhyme
subscribe, please, to our YouTube channel. You will get all our previous shows there, not just from this program, but from all the other Middle Path Radio events and programs that we have. Our next program is Thursday. We'll be having a regular weekly tech, download on the weekly tech news, and following that we'll have our Islamic program, Riyadus Salihin, by Ustad Khidr Hussein from Azhar. Make sure you tune in and tell your friends and family about Middle Path Radio. The Riyadh, Brother Zain is asking, when is the Riyadh Salihin program? It's every Saturdays, I believe at 7:30. Is that correct, Mr. Producer? Every Saturday, 7:30 with Ustad Khidr Hussein. That's a wrap from us. I'm logging out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
There remains one bastion of truth amidst the confusion. One beacon of light shining through the murky fog of spin and Islamophobic propaganda. That's right. It's the NP Radio Security Council. The final frontier in the fight for freedom and fairness. I give you the Security Council.
أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني سائر في طريق الحق يا جند.
Middle Path Radio, your number one online Islamic talk station.
في إحساس أراه زاده امتحنان في أبتغي حضن يتيم طاهر الروح نقيا في إحساس أراه زاده امتحنان في أبتغي حضن يتيم طاهر الروح نقيا كي يحيل ظلمة القلب بإحسان.
In a world overrun by neocon warmongers, and with the mass media in the pockets of the cabal elite, there remains one bastion of truth amidst the confusion. One beacon of light shining through the murky fog of spin and Islamophobic propaganda. That's right, it's the NP Radio Security Council. The final frontier in the fight for freedom and fairness. I give you the Security Council.
أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني سائر في طريق الحق يا جند الله.